Hey everybody, welcome to The Aisle. Our podcast is episode 3 with Blake and Sir Dewan.
Sir Dewan
Yes.
is here.
Special guest, one of my favorite people on this planet, musical genius, Juilliard alumni, Evan King.
Evan King, also known as EK.
I hate to correct, but
It's Juilliard. It's Juilliard. Thank you.
we can get into that later. It's fine.
We've heard you play. It's Juilliard.
Is that the ballerina school?
Juilliard. Is that the school for the deaf?
The ballerina.
Juilliard, school for the deaf. I love it.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Great start. Great start.
No, I think it was Berkeley, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it was
Correct.
the other Juilliard.
The other
Anywho,
Juilliard.
All right, we're going to get into the topic for today. We're talking about self-doubt and
Self-doubt and unbelief, I believe.
Yes.
Unbelief.
I believe. It's
I feel
unbelief.
like this is a heavy topic, but I feel like
Yes.
me and Evan, our relationship is like pretty like carefree.
It's one of those where it seems like you could just weave in and out of it. Like it's
Yes.
one of those that we can like talk about things, but then it's almost like understood, even if it's just like looks, body language, anything like that. Like as we talk about stuff, we're just like, oh, this is serious.
Yeah.
Like, but there's not like this, right? You know, there's not this.
A sign that pops up and says,
Correct.
Applause.
serious moment.
Correct. And
Seriously.
Yes.
His eyes, you was just like, oh, America. So hard.
Bring it back. Bring it back, guys.
Reel it in. Reel it in.
it's a very good topic because it's one of those situations where surrounding yourself with community and with people that you trust, people that you have faith in, and people that you know will go to bat for you pretty much through anything, can just really like nothing. It's one of those nothing needs to be said.
Yeah.
Like one of those situations, like especially with you two, it's a situation where I can literally just like, hey, you got a minute? And it's not like the air sucked out of the room, like, oh, what's this guy about? It's just more like, oh, we need to talk. Like, we got to go over some stuff. So,
Some life stuff.
Yeah. And one of those is, well, not that we talk about that all the time, but one of the situations that men deal with a lot of times is self-doubt. And not just unbelief of anything religious, but just like disbelief or unbelief in yourself.
Yeah.
Like, self-doubt, confidence, belief, all kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, they definitely do. Yeah. It's a challenge, man. It really is. There's a lot of weight on your shoulders as a man, especially when you have a family added into that. Like you got kids that got to take care of, you got a spouse that you got to take care of. And even in that, you got to take care of yourself also. Absolutely. And so now you've got 3 areas that you are in charge of. And it's like, am I good enough for this? Yep. You know, am I doing a good enough job as a parent? Am I doing a good enough job as a husband? And even on that, am I doing a good enough job as a friend? Mm-hmm. Like that's a whole nother layer, right?
I feel like too, society is set up to where guys don't get congratulations. You don't get the validation you need either because you're expected to just doesn't matter if you're not keep doing.
You just
doesn't matter if you're doing a good job.
Just keep trucking along.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're fine.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it, and it's disheartening. Yeah. I myself went through a journey last year of self-realization. Went down a very deep, dark rabbit hole of anxiety, depressive thoughts, anything like that. So I dove into, whether it be psychology, whether it be psychiatry, anything like that, to just really get down to the point of like, why do we think the way that we think?
Right.
Also, people think of midlife crises as, oh, well, that's the guy who went out and bought a sports car to feel younger, or he went to do this, or he did that to like bring it back. And it's, from what I found, it's not only deeper than that, it's darker than that.
Oh, yes.
And so I don't think a lot of people think that, because it's kind of like anything else in life. Oh, that won't happen to me. I've got everything together.
Right.
However, you both know how big of a myth that is. Who really has it together? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I went down the rabbit hole with just that research because I'm trying to figure out, hey, how can I regain control?
Right.
Or will I ever regain control?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those that I think men of all ages deal with that. As you get older, though, there's more the less realization than there is dealing. So, you're in high school, you're worried about the test.
Yep.
You're worried about the dance. You're worried about whatever like that. And then as you get into college, yeah, exactly. And you get into college, and then you're worried about making your classes and keeping your scholarships and or athletics or whatever, and while still having a job, while still doing this, paying rent.
Right.
And then you get out of that, then you're worried about finding a job. So there's just different struggles in different situations all throughout life.
Absolutely.
And then, like you said, I think the biggest pressures can be family, kids, friendships, job, all of these things. Work. Yeah, exactly. And so the only thing about it is, we've talked before about how like the Bible can be like an ultimate manual of such. But then, nowadays you've got the Complete Idiot's Guide. You've got the so-and-so for dummies. You've got all these different books and such.
Yes.
There's not one of how to have it together.
Yeah.
There's not a book. There's not a manual. There's not instructions. It's just kind of like,
yeah. And I even think on that, like how to keep it together through different situations. Like you are going through the different phases of your life as a man, but like, how do I keep it together in all these different transitions? Like you go from carefree elementary, middle school to high school. Now I got, like you said, being responsible for your grades, all these other things. Now you got to start considering. You go to college, there's more on top of that. I mean, you get married, start a family, there's more on top of that. And all of that keeps changing. And if you don't ever, we talked about in the previous episode, taking care of yourself. Like if you don't take care of yourself, that stuff piles up. And if you don't have avenues to talk about it, it just builds up. And then you get halfway through your life and you're like, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling this moment. I'm not feeling this anymore. Like I feel like I need to do something else besides this.
Yep.
Right. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
Like you take on 30, 40 years of changes and responsibilities piled on your shoulders, and you haven't been in a healthy situation to deal with that. No wonder people start falling apart.
Absolutely.
40s and 50s.
Absolutely.
It's just a lot.
If not sooner. And especially nowadays with society the way that it's been and how things have kind of turned the way that they are.
Right.
It's not a wonder. I mean, we were talking the other night about suicide prevention.
Yeah.
And I can't, like I said, we could obviously look it up. We have literal computers in our hands, but what do we say? Something like there is a case of suicide every how many seconds?
Yeah, it was
a day.
41 or 40 something.
Something like that.
It was,
yeah,
it was insane.
Every
was it 14?
It was like a suicide every
lower.
It was like a suicide every 15 seconds or something like that.
An absurd number.
Like 4.
Like
it's really crazy.
It's exactly, and so it's just one of those that it's so easy. And that's the other thing about it is when you have people that tell you, "Oh, suck it up, throw some dirt on it, it'll be fine," and such. But when you've never like lived through that, and I'm not saying I was ever like that. I feel like I'm fairly tolerant. Period. Like it's just like life is life, and we all have life, and life is great. We were given a life; it's wonderful. But it's just one of those situations that until you like experience something like that, it's very easy to just say, "Oh, well, that's the easy way out." However, when you think about everything that comes up, you've got these people that like talk about, "Oh, I attempted it and failed."
Yeah.
Or they're just like, I thought about it multiple times. The question that came up is, what if? Yeah. And I was actually just talking a little earlier to Connie about that. And I just said, the most dangerous situation you can be in is if you say, what if ...
Yeah.
Or what about ...
Yeah.
Almost like you're searching for something.
Oh, yes.
And there's the doubt.
Yeah.
There's also the unbelief that you don't have enough belief either in yourself, in God, your community, your gang, your whatever like that, your friendships. You don't have enough belief that you can come out on the other side.
Yeah.
Basically, that's you saying, this is as good as it's going to get. It's already been as good as it's going to get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do I have to do from here?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing more to do from here.
Yeah.
However, in a way, that's us trying to dictate our own plan. Like, a lot of people will say, oh, well, that happened. Why would God allow that?
Yeah.
Who said that was God?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's 100. Like, what you're describing is what I've walked through. Like, it's been probably 14, 15 years now.
Yeah.
But I was in that place of what if? What if I take my life? Like, it was at the place of they're probably better off without me.
Yep.
Like, it had gotten to that point in my head, like, oh, they'd be better off without me. I've got my issues. I'm causing problems anyway. They would be better off without me.
Yep.
And I don't have answers to solve any of these problems. So I went through that whole thing. And the what ifs got very real. Like, here's a plan. And really, I could never find a plan that didn't involve the possibility of me hurting someone else or the possibility of my family finding me first.
Yep.
And so, because I couldn't figure out either one of those, I eventually walked out of that. But, you talked about the community and, having the church. At that time, I did not have community. I did not have a church. We were looking for a church, and then we kind of just gave up on it because we were living in Kentucky at the time. So I was just really just out there on my own.
Yeah.
I had no one to turn to, no one to call, nowhere to go in a city that I didn't want to be in anymore. So yeah, like, if you don't have any of that stuff, like, you are, and those what ifs come, it's very dark.
Yeah.
It's very dark.
I think too, that what if mentality, you have to, it's not enough just to, we talked earlier about taking care of yourself. That doesn't mean that you neglect your responsibilities.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're selfish.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you kind of like go off on your own and kind of go rogue, but it does mean that you're doing something to pour into your empty well.
Yes.
So that you can be poured out, and like, so people can take something from you, but people are always taking. You can't pull from an empty well, or you can't draw from an empty well. So do things like have community, have that person that you talk to, journal, hike, whatever you need to do, spend time with that person that is your person. Pour into yourself. It's not about, because if you're not doing that, you're distracting yourself.
Yes.
And that doesn't make the problem go away. The problem is still there, and your well is still empty.
Look at this guy.
He's dope, man.
Look at this.
That's why he's here.
And then 2, thoughts, feelings, actions. It's all connected. So I teach my kids that whatever you're thinking about causes you to feel something, and then you eventually do something.
You respond to that thought. Yep.
Even if you don't know what you're feeling, you can tie it back to either one of those corners and be like, okay, well, I was feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, depressed. What was I thinking about before that happened, right? Or what did I do because of that?
Right.
So
this is a really good topic, honestly, for you to talk about. I mean, as well, just because, I know you said it before, and of course, anybody that knows Blake, which Blake's
he's internationally known.
It really is.
No, worldwide.
Yes, worldwide.
He's otherworldly.
All right, Josh.
Everybody knows
that. Watch it. Josh,
is that a JG word?
Yes.
But with your counseling background.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those situations that, we talk about men experiencing that and women experiencing that, adolescence and such, but you work K through 6.
Yeah.
And it's probably very easy to see a lot of situations like this, not maybe to this extremity.
Yeah.
But within like kids of just doubt, unbelief.
Yeah. It starts there.
Little to no confidence.
It starts at that age of I've like teaching my kids about the process of thoughts, feelings, and action. I've learned about myself. I had a revelation to where if I didn't think I could do something, I wouldn't try.
Yeah.
So it wasn't enough for me just to be like, oh, I'm not good at that, but let me try to see if I'm good at it. If I didn't get it the first time, it's not worth doing.
Right.
So a lot of my kids, that's been a light bulb moment for them too, to where it's like, I mean, if I would tell myself, hey, I'm not great at this, but I could try. Just that little thinking kind of helps open your feelings up to feeling more encouraged, feeling more empowered, feeling more. You're probably still frustrated. It doesn't make like uncomfortable feelings go away,
right?
But it makes room for other feelings to come in to make you feel like you can. And then your action is you try.
Yeah.
And you put forth effort. You don't escape to the bathroom and
yes.
pretend like you're asleep, take a stomach ache. Like,
it's fine. I need to go home.
Because that was me. Thank you. Any kind of math class. I think I'm feeling sick.
I'm sick.
You said that yesterday.
And I'm still sick.
I'm still sick.
It's getting over. I think I have a virus.
I think I have a hernia. Not the hernia.
I'm exploding.
George, not the livestock.
It's the methane.
Yes. It's so much.
It's like the great Homer Simpson says. You tried hard and you failed miserably. The lesson is simple: never try.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah,
and so
I didn't realize I was doing that.
Yeah.
Until I was 33.
Right.
Yeah.
So
self-realization. It's like literally an inward journey.
Yeah.
And I love the analogy of pulling from an empty well, because so often the other thing is you'll find, actually it's not just with men, but it's like with everybody.
Yeah.
That you give and you give. And you give, oh, yeah, they'll help me with this. They'll help me with this. But the first instance, and you know this from experience, we've talked about this. And honestly, you know this because we've talked about this too. First instance of, oh, you know, not today. It's like, oh, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And it's just like all of a sudden, even though we've decided to take up for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're terrible people or it's not that we've done anything wrong. It's just like, hey, look, I'm drained. I'm empty.
Yes.
And you say no. And then all of a sudden you're the bad guy because you've decided to protect your own integrity.
Yes.
Then you start questioning your own beliefs of, was that really that bad? Like, should I have said no?
Yeah.
And then you doubt yourself.
It work. Yeah.
However, you doubt yourself on your own integrity for the fact that even though you know you're right, is it worth upsetting somebody? And then it becomes an inward struggle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's almost one of those, it's not even a catch 22. It's like a catch 44.
Yeah.
You double it because it's just like,
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Double it, you go to the next one.
Yeah. In the words of the Olsen twins, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Just saying. I thought that was revolutionary. I'm like,
it's the
beginning. You know what it is?
It's the beginning.
Like, Evan has said this before. He was like, you don't have to have an excuse of why you don't want to come.
Yeah.
You could just say no. You could just, that could be it.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, don't even say I don't feel like coming. Just say no.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those.
We'll see.
Some of the.
I gotta see. I gotta see. Just say no. I gotta see.
I got a couple of instances with that. So, like at my last church, I was I was like helping set up the sound and set up the chairs and stuff. And the administrative pastor there said, "Hey, are you going to come out to the fall festival on the weekend?" I said, "I don't know. We'll see." And he just literally said, and I was telling you this other day, he just said, "Yes or no. There's no in between."
Yes.
And I went, okay, well, no.
Do you help with it?
We'll see. You know what? It forced me to just, that's that decision making that, sometimes honestly men don't do. Like, because we're so afraid of letting somebody down.
Yeah.
That we'll give them like a cushion. Yeah. Like, oh, we'll see. I'll try. That's the other thing. Somebody will say, I'll try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But the best story, and that's why I told you this in regards to, no is, that's good enough. But some of the best relationships we have, like if I'm like, hey, Blake, you want to come out and hang out to something, and you're just like, not today. I'm not really feeling it. I will literally be like, okay, cool. Are you okay? And it's like, yeah, I'm fine. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those, it's like, other than that, that's your thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do whatever.
My mental illness is knowing that you aren't okay with it. Underneath it, you're okay. Oh, he's doing something. I'm so bummed he let me down. He didn't hang out with me. Oh my God. No,
he's never going to touch me.
It's totally me. So that's my mental illness. It's like, you're definitely not okay with me saying that. So I shouldn't be okay with it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm in therapy. To work through
until he literally just rolls over and goes back to sleep. Like, he literally wakes up, writes you back, and goes back to sleep.
I'm out.
But me and my dad were at a get together before, and it was like a bunch of people there, and they were just asking. Like a couple of guys came up to him and asked him, "Say, hey, you want to come out and do the?" And I forget what it was. I think it was like playing some golf tournament or something. He said, probably not. Like, I'm not going to be available then. And they kept pushing and they kept pushing. And he just kept saying no. And they said, oh, why not? And he literally said, because I don't want to.
Yeah.
And that was just a mind blow for me because I'm just like, it can be that simple.
Yeah.
Because I was always under the impression like, oh, you got to have a reason. If somebody asks, you got to have a reason.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, none of your business.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I'm outgoing, but I'm fairly private anyways, because I'm just kind of like, outgoing's outgoing and then personal's personal, and I can draw that line between the two.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those that the people that I know, I will involve.
Right.
And it's not that I don't care about people if I don't involve you, but it's just like, sometimes I just want to sit at home in my PJs and do nothing.
100%.
Sometimes I don't even have to do anything. I'll just literally want to sit.
Yes. And, the power of the word no is also liberating.
Correct.
Because I have now reached this place where no feels good.
Yeah.
And I don't worry about what people have to say about it. People's opinion of my time. It's my time. Yes. I know me better than you do.
Yes.
I know when DeJuan has to take a break and not go places.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just like my wife is a go person.
Yeah, and we've talked to her about that. Yeah. She's really got to work on that.
We got to pray for her. But
I is DeJuan's wife.
I am
his only wife.
Yeah, my only wife. I don't have three like our
his
previous
first,
guys.
His last, is everything. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for covering my trails. I appreciate you. A true friend.
Thank you for coming to the TED Talk.
But what was I even saying? Now you messed me up, Blake.
You said that no is
very good.
No feels good.
It feels good.
I think it's liberating for me.
Yes, but it gives me the opportunity to take care of me.
Yes,
that's what my no does.
Yeah.
Yes. And so she's a go person. I am not. I am the type of person I could literally chill on the couch for days because I'm an introvert. So when I go out and do stuff, it's very exhausting. More mentally exhausting than anything.
Being mentally present is a real thing.
Yes. It's difficult. So if I'm doing something like 3-4 days in a row, man, I'm done. Yeah. I need a couple days to just
3-4 things.
Just chill.
I'm good for one big thing a day now. I'm finding that as I get older, I'm good for one big event.
Oh yeah.
And if there's something on the weekend that's coming,
you
best with the weekend before, I can do it.
Nothing.
No, I have to prepare for next week.
Absolutely.
I've
got to recharge mentally.
Have to
for what I'm about to walk into. 100%.
Last weekend was exhausting.
Yeah. I was crashing midday though. I told him I had 2 coffees and a tea. By mid-afternoon, my body was like, "Where are you? What's happening right now? Where are you?
You left town?
Aren't you laying dead?
Are you dead?" I will say I'm terrible.
Mom, can you come pick me up?
Pick me up, please, today. Please. I'm terrible at boundaries, and I would say yes to everything, especially when it comes to ministry too. Sometimes just saying yes to everything and feel like you have to say yes to everything as well, and kill yourself. But literally, me and Brittany Spicer went out to ice cream one day because Brittany is great at boundaries. She is very if you don't know Brittany, she's great at drawing the line.
Google.
She's good at that.
Very true.
So I said, Brittany, how? I have one question. How do you do it? How do you not feel bad for saying no or for having those boundaries? She said, you simply cannot do 50 things and give all 50 things 100%.
No.
We had a leadership meeting at church before, and Pastor John had a great quote. He said, you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Yeah. And think about it. If you're not giving everything 100%, you think that you're giving this great effort, but people are suffering because you're not in it. You're not putting it all in it.
Yep.
So you're killing yourself, not giving out to others like you think you are. And you're lying, I'm so involved. You can be in the kitchen and still be fall asleep on the stove, because you're tired. You need a nap. You need to go do something else. Yeah.
What is it?
I lost my face.
You'd rather fully fill one pitcher than to halfway fill 50 glasses.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that helped me a lot. That was monumental for me. So pick 3 things and give those 3 things your attention. But
it also is very helpful to see someone that either inspires you or you look up to or you hold in high regards demonstrating that behavior too.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, again, you know, the Spicers, you know, and just derive it back to the Millers, because, you know, Pastor Wayne and Lana will do anything for anybody, but they draw that line too. And you have to, especially if you've been in ministry as long as they have, like they will draw that line.
Yeah.
And does that mean they're less holy? No, absolutely not. Does that mean anybody is? You know, I've had conversations with Pastor Bryce on several occasions of just like, hey, you know, we're here for you if you need anything, but I'm not going to ring your phone off the hook because I'm just like, hey, when you're away, like I want to respect that when you're away. He's like, well, I'm on call all the time just in case anyways, because that's just the type of person that he is.
And Pastor Bryce models that too. He doesn't have to be preaching every Sunday.
But
it doesn't have to be.
Correct. Exactly. But then you'll send him a text or do something like that. It'll say he has this notification silence because he knows at this time, this is
my time.
So if it's gonna like ring his phone, it's gonna be an emergency.
Sorry, there was.
There was squirrel.
So I want to backtrack a little bit. So you talked about
we've come too far.
Too far. Where was the trail?
Next.
So you talked about last year the anxiety. Did you figure out the things that were building or leading into that?
So, yes and no. It was very interesting because that's why I say, like, honestly, and like, we've gotten to know each other very well. Now, honestly, the scariest part about it was there was no warning.
Right.
But what it uncovered was stuff that apparently I'd either been holding on to, had subconsciously thought about, and to me that's scarier than stuff leading up to it, because the stuff leading up to it you can at least say I get it, I know, but no, it was just one of those nights where I was, or one of those situations at least, I was like, I had gone to bed a little early, I was just kind of like, I didn't really feel well anyways,
right?
And then like 10:30, 10:45 at night, I just woke up like sweating and just like gasped almost. And I was worried because the way that I was laying, I was at that moment, I guess I was a stomach sleeper, and I thought I was laying into the pillow and I was gasping so hard that I thought I was literally suffocating myself.
Wow.
But I wasn't. It was just like I had done that. And so then all of a sudden I started like, I was like taking breaths in my nose and out my mouth. And then all of a sudden I was just like, I can't catch my breath.
Right.
And then it just snowballed. And then before I knew it, I was literally in the bathroom like, I think I might be having a panic attack.
Right.
Just like, it just snowballed into that. So finally, and at that point, like I said, about 10:30 at night, I woke up. I was up the rest of the night.
Right.
So, and then I went to work the next day. But then...
That's what you do as a guy.
Yeah. Because it's like, just, you just deal with it and stuff. But what happened is every time I went to go to sleep, it would be one of those that I'd like drift off, and then you kind of have that falling feeling.
Yeah.
And then I'd gasp and wake myself back up. Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
But Blake brought up a great point, because what ended up happening was I would go to work, and I'd almost find peace at work. Not because work makes me incredibly happy, though I do love my job. But what it was it was like muscle memory. It was something easy. Yes. I could do it.
Yes.
Because I had the confidence to do so. Yeah. But it also was a distraction. Instead of dealing with what I need to. Instead of dealing what I needed to, I did what I thought I should.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I never really faced the problem. So there were a few nights like that. And then it got to a point where I just went to the doctor and said, hey, look, I can't sleep.
Right.
Like I've maybe slept 3 hours in 4 days.
Oh, goodness.
And like, I mean, he's like, the doctor was just like, you look at, like, I mean, black circles under my eyes, like eyes sunken back. I mean, it was like, I looked sick. And so like we started talking about medications. And honestly, I'm like, well, let's just see. Hold on, because
I gotta see.
Again,
yeah. Let me figure this out.
You see where it's going.
I also will interject this: going to the doctor to make him less holy, less spiritual, or less saved.
Absolutely.
Go to the doctor.
Get yourself
checked. Go to the doctor. Go to the doctor. Get yourself checked out.
Especially when you're struggling with something.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is that the more frustrating part about it is that as it started going further, I started having questions. Right. What if?
Yeah.
What could happen? What's this? But when it gets to the point, because you said something earlier, every single time that someone's seriously considered it, they've always said, I'm bringing everybody down. Nobody wants to be around me.
Yeah.
This place would be better without me.
Yeah.
That's why people move away, run away and stuff. It's just, it's the easy way out, so to speak. And that's, it's disheartening because what was it? Somebody, I saw somebody the other day in a video and they said suicide is the most selfish act a human being can commit.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to hear that because it's just like, that's somebody's loved one. That's somebody's family member. And it's such a heavy, deep, dark topic. But unfortunately, it's absolutely correct because when something like that happens, it's everybody else that lives with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because not only have you lost someone you incredibly love so much, but what happens is there's that that resounding guilt. Mm-hmm. What could I have done different?
Yeah.
How could I have helped that? Like, I could have saved them.
Yeah.
And the reason that hits so hard is because, what year is it? Oh, literally 20 years ago. So the way that I grew up, I grew up with, and I had a babysitter who was it was like my grandmother. In fact, that my parents knew her. And when she started taking care of me, she was in her 70s. And she was like the old school way, you know, everything was cooked in the cast iron skillet and all this. But she taught me how to read she helped teach me how to read, helped me learn words and such by the King James Version Bible. Like, her Bible was how, like, there were no little golden books or hooked on phonics or anything. No, you learn from the King James Version. You learn from the King James Version. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Was it Speak and Spell? Speak and Say?
Yeah, Speak and Spell. Yeah.
What's that?
Blake doesn't have kids. He hasn't been there.
You were a kid.
I only know. Wait, present day?
No,
like back when we were kids, it's a little thing where you like pull the lever. The cow says, "Ooh."
That's what Speak and Say is?
A little string.
Well, the Speak and Say is another thing where it's like, yeah.
Is it the seesaw? No, it's called the seesaw thing. We had a barnyard one.
It's called the seesaw thing.
That was one of them. There was multiple versions.
Yes,
but people with money had those. we have the barnyard.
I think the Speak and Say.
Fisher Price. Fisher. Thanks.
The Speak and Say was the little thing that like had the words, and then it sounded like the devil.
Yes,
like the word we had,
like it was possessed.
Yeah, so I got mixed up on that.
Yeah,
but yeah, so I basically learned from the King James Version. Like, that's why I literally, like, I see New King James Version, NLT, NIV, like all these different versions. I'm like, nah, the OG, So, but like that Bible was torn just because of like all the pages that we'd flip through. So it was just one of those very hugely monumental. Well, as I got older, she lived in the middle of town, whereas we kind of lived in the country. So I'd have to get taken to her house. Well, I started going to school to a different school, which was not close to her. So I didn't get to see her near as much. And then in my head, I see her deteriorating and just going. And then I'm thinking, oh, you know what? I need to spend more time with her. But of course, time doesn't stop for anyone.
No.
So it was just one thing after the other. She had health issues. Well, back in December of 2002.
Okay.
I literally, like, every year at the holidays, we'd always call, say, Merry Christmas.
Right.
Thinking about you, we would send her a present, and everything, just as a thank you for the years. Because, I mean, again, I'm 15. She's practically raised me.
Yeah.
Along with my parents. And so literally talked to her Christmas Day. Everything's fine. Thank you for that. I'm doing good. And even before that, I've just seen, because she was on dialysis too. And, when you're on dialysis, it's kind of a slow decline. Yes. I hate to say it, but it's just true. It's
very hard.
It's just biding time at that point.
Yeah.
So, around the 27th, no, it's 26th, 27th, something like that. Literally the next day or 2 days later, we get a call that she had fallen at her place and broken her hip, but she fell Christmas night. And laid in the floor all night.
Oh gosh.
But she's 81, 82. So, not to bring the whole thing down, but you kind of see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And so we go to visit her in the hospital. We're like, why would you do something like that? And of course we see her and like her hands are bruised, like black and blue.
Yeah.
And she's fine. She's just laying there, just happy as all get out as ever. And she just said, oh, I'd fallen. But then we go to like her place and look, and the place is torn up. So what she had done is she had tripped over her rug, fallen and broken her hip, and tried to claw to get to the phone to call help for help, but she couldn't make it. So then she just laid on the floor literally all night. And then one of her daughters found her in the morning just laying in the floor. So it's just like, I'm sitting there going, like, what do you say that? But of course, it shows strength and perseverance. Well, let's just keep this fun train rolling. So around the 29th, she has a stroke.
Oh gosh!
And goes blind.
Oh gosh!
And loses all of her memory, except the only two people she remembers is one of her granddaughters and me. Nobody else. She doesn't remember her own daughters or anything like that. So go visit in the hospital because I'm literally getting called from family saying she's asking for you.
Right.
And I'm 15. You have to remember I am 15 years old.
Yes.
You want to talk about the weight of the world, like the job, the family stuff. I'm not even there yet, but I'm sitting there like,
what's
what
happening?
do you do about this?
What is happening?
And so borderline traumatic experience in the hospital of just like laying there and talking. And then she's talking to me and then just saying these things. And little did I know that she, one thing that she had said to me, which I'm not going to get into, but one thing that she had said to me was the last thing that she'd ever say to me.
Yeah.
And that's the last time I'd ever see her.
Goodness.
Alive. So I'm 15 years old in the floor of an emergency room, losing it.
Yeah.
Like losing it.
Because in 4
anything
days,
that can be lost. Yes. Anything that can be lost is lost at that point. Because as a 15-year-old in 4 days, I have literally like my entire upbringing is coming to like an apex at that point. And so that was kind of the grief because it's just kind of one of those that you don't want to accept it, but inevitably you're just like, I know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So Christmas Day, she falls, breaks her hip. 3 days later, has a stroke, goes blind. And New Year's Day, 2003, she passes away.
Wow.
So
in a week. She went from fine laughing
to
on the phone call
gone.
Wow.
So the best part about it all, though, is I had no question of where she was going. Again, she taught me how to read from the Bible. It's like, if you can read this book, you can read anything else. She would always say to me all the time.
Yeah.
So
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you speak in these and thous when you first learned to read?
I did, actually.
I was just curious.
I would use them and then found out what they mean and use them even more because I'm like, thee is me, and then thy is you, your.
I will say, someone told me that the King James Version is the most easiest to memorize.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
Even though it's worded very like King James.
Simplistic.
But honestly, I will catch myself repeating verses in my head in King James.
Yes.
From learning them at that age.
Because the other versions are more wordy.
Yes.
They're wordy and they're more like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it kind of draws to it when you think of the, as they say, old world speak.
Yeah.
Thee, thou, thy, all that. It's kind of like.
It's almost out of place, so it's easy to remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the other thing was, of course, in her will. So see, at that time, I'd been playing guitar for a couple of years. But every time I would go visit her, she'd want me to bring her my guitar. And she would want me to play Amazing Grace. So I would do it every single time. Right before I left, she'd say, you haven't played for me yet. So I'd play Amazing Grace every single time. And then she'd say, okay, now you can leave.
Now you can go.
And it's just, exactly.
Dismissed.
So in her will, it was written that she wanted me to play that at the funeral.
Oh, wow.
She literally changed her will when I started playing guitar, so I would play that for her.
Wow.
And so that, like, I've had stages of 300 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, 15,000 people. That was the hardest show I've ever played.
Oh, for sure.
And it was a funeral home of maybe 45.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's just like you're sitting there playing, looking down. And it was like interesting because one of the concerts or one of the things that I go back to was when John Mayer played Human Nature at Michael Jackson's like memorial where the casket's down there and he's just playing. It's like, it was a very intense moment, but I'm just like, that was nothing.
Yeah.
In a way, having that many people there is almost a cushion or a blanket to be able to do stuff. But like when you're there with like that, it's like,
it's just
yes,
close
Michael
family.
Jackson's the king of pop. Yeah. Yes, I understand the impact that he had, but it's just like, that's my family. Like that's my borderline, even though she wasn't, it's still my flesh and blood. Like, that's more family than family, for actually. Sure. And so I'm just like putting pressure. And again, I'm cycling all this back. It's just little about me.
Yeah.
But there's that pressure of, if I mess up, I'm going to screw this up and do her a disservice. She's not going to. And then right before I started, I'm like, she's going to love it no matter what. Because when I first started playing this, I sucked.
You were terrible.
I was terrible at guitar. But she would
there's
laugh.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And there's Evan.
No.
King.
Oh,
one step. One step.
One step. One step.
It's a small step.
It's purposely wrong at this point. No. But I sat there and just said, she's going to be happy no matter what, because she sees that I'm trying.
Yes.
However, let's fast forward now, because, I mean, to finish that story, it's one of those where, and you'll get a kick out of this, because I played in a basketball league at the time. It wasn't for like high school, but it was just like a rec high school league,
city league, yeah.
And so, I had a game that night, and I wasn't going to do it. And literally, my dad, who's just kind of like, he's my dad. Like, he's awesome. But he was just like, you know what? I think you should play. He said, if nothing else, get your mind off of it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's something just, you've been through enough. Go do something that you enjoy. And I'm like, that's the best advice.
Yes.
And my mom said the same thing, like, absolutely. Let's just go out there and just forget about it. Well, I went out there, and then one of my best friends had known everything I was going through. I was literally talking to him on the phone when I found out that she passed away.
Oh, wow.
So he's literally, like, him and his girlfriend were like, we're going to come out there. We're going to come watch you and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they were sitting out there, and like, I just thought it was going to be an interesting night, because I was sitting at the bleachers I was sitting like the goal was behind me, and I was like close to half court, and I just jokingly laughed through the ball behind me, and it literally went in, like during warm-ups. Yeah. And I'm just like, huh.
I'm on fire already.
Absolutely. So we ended up.
Yes.
You guys needed me tonight.
Yeah, be a 40-point night.
Exactly. And so I'm like, yes, it was a flu game, is what it was. No.
Yes.
And so we ended up winning. I actually ended up having the game winner, because what happened is they missed a free throw with like a second to go, and I literally just jumped and tipped it, went in, game winner. And I'm just like, yeah, it was just one of those situations where it was just like a shining moment through a dark time.
Yeah.
But I literally lived for 15 years, because all I could think about was, if I hadn't have left, if I hadn't have changed schools, if I hadn't have done this, I could have kept her alive. And then my sister, my parents, my friends, like anybody was just like, you can't live like that. Like, this was not your fault. You know this. But as a man, we take responsibility. There's all of these things that come with it. So that took 15 years to even just be able to start talking about.
Right.
And then when you start thinking about different things of, you know what, I really do the best I can. I did the best that I could as far as that goes. And then I start thinking about it, because again, we are always intimidated or scared by what we don't understand. And to me, that gives me more incentive to actually just research and try to understand it. Yeah. Because it's like, if it doesn't make sense, why doesn't it make sense? Why can't I understand?
Yeah.
So I would look into that and just think about all of that weight and just think, what could I have done different? And it's like, you know what? I did everything I could. And it's easy for somebody on that side to say, well, she knew you loved her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
However, I'm like, but I don't feel like it.
Right.
And then we get selfish. We get inwardly selfish
about
that. So then, this was again last year, because again, we're in 2023 now. So as we're coming up, like, I'm thinking about everything happening. I'm thinking about how life has progressed. And I'm just like, oh man, it's going to be 20 years this year.
Yeah.
Since that's happened. And I'm like, and then I started thinking, I was like, what if she was still around? Like, I wonder what it'd be like. And I'm like, oh, she would be in her hundreds. And that's no way to live. And then it hit me. That's like, it hit me about purpose. And then I started thinking about like doubt and belief and all these different things.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, it's not a matter of could I have done anything differently? Sometimes there's a purpose that must be fulfilled. And that's where God comes into play.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about, we talk about the different things like, oh, if God was real, how would he allow this? If, how can God allow this and allow this? And it's like, well, nobody said he did allow it, honestly.
Right. It just happens.
But also understand that, the world has free will. That was literally in the plan. And then I think about, we have that plan that we fulfill. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, all I can do is the best that I can do.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if he says, well done, my good and faithful servant, enter in the joys in the kingdom of heaven for all eternity. It's kind of like everything else feels so insignificant.
Oh, yes.
And that's why several people have made comments, like earlier today, when we were playing golf, Paul had said something about, man, I just really enjoy playing with you because you're just so positive. Like you've got this way about you that's just, you can always find the good in everything. And it's like, well, that came from that realization of, you know what? All I can do is the best I can do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then a lot of people, have just said, you don't really get bent out of shape, do you? And I said, why? Now, when I was younger and I played sports,
different ballgame.
It's a different story.
Yes. 100%.
Having a child mellows you out very quickly.
It definitely does.
Because at that point, it ain't about you anymore.
No.
It's not about how many points you scored, or it's not about how many, how good or low the score was in golf, or how many aces you hit in tennis, or anything like that. It's literally like, you got somebody that's more dependent on you.
Unless you're that crazy parent that thinks your kid's going pro in every sport.
Well, your kid's crazy. It's like, you kind of took up all the crazy. No? You kind of took up all the crazy.
It's inherited.
Leave a little for the rest of us.
What I'm hearing you say is the opposite of doubt is purpose.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
However, I think people also have to understand that complacency is not terrible. And I say this because it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's one of those that, you work really hard to get to a place, and they always tell you, oh, well, you know what, just get to the next level. Just get to the next level. But can you really appreciate the next level if you've never appreciated where you were before?
Yeah.
My
it's
realization,
just all about moving forward.
Correct. My realization is with that journey of, you know what, I hurt a lot. 2003 was a very bad year. And it's like, well, why wouldn't it be? It started off, there's words for that I'm not going to say, but it started off very bad.
Yeah.
But now thinking back on it and the way that I lived and the mistakes that I made and how everything was kind of carved out, I found that I was subconsciously trying to do things to fill voids as opposed to live and fulfill my purpose.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So now I'm at the point where I'm thinking, you know what? I should have taken more time and really embellished in the moment. Because instead of embellishing and thinking and celebrating, which is why my perspective has shifted with hospitals and hospitals and funeral homes. Because of that year, I could not go to a hospital or a nursing home.
Right.
If somebody was there, even if it was a friend to visit, and I'm like, I'll call you.
Yeah.
I can't go. Exactly.
Yeah. It's very different.
Straight up.
Yeah.
And so even with like childbirths, like it's just like, congrats.
Hope everything comes out okay.
Literally.
Quite literally things.
But there was just so much doubt. Instead of really appreciating everything that God had given me, put me through.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about his purpose. I was thinking about how much I hurt. And so what I was doing is I was filling voids. I was distracted. I was, just whatever.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I can say that I didn't fill them unhealthily. Like there was no drug use. I was that guy that never did anything illegal. I was even afraid for prescribed medication, even though the doctor's like, yeah, it's okay.
It's fine. Take this.
No. And it's just one of those, like, again, I just had good family values instilled. Like I have to give so many kudos to my parents who just instilled, like, I never had a desire to do anything like that. My sister and my mom would argue a lot of the time because my sister would be like, you never got on to him all the time. You never did this. And mom's like, that's where I knew. She said, I knew where he was all the time. 9 o'clock at night, he was on a Friday night, he was in his room and stuff. He didn't have to, we never worried about him sneaking out. And I sat there, I was like, boy, I was a dork. Like 9 o'clock on a Friday night, if I didn't have a tennis match, I'd have a tennis match and I'd come home and I'd just be playing guitar in my room. Like, that's just what I did. And it was just like, I was a dork. But I like to think I was a cool dork.
Yes.
I wasn't just a dork. I was the cool
Not a regular dork.
I was a regular cool dork.
Yeah. Different level of dork here.
I found, because of that, and that's kind of one reason I was saying that when I brought up guitar, because if someone can just push me and celebrate me when I sucked, like I was bad. I was bad at guitar.
Yep.
But it was just like that encouragement. Oh, you know what? You're doing really good. Really like, play for me. There was never like, oh, you should go practice. Just like, oh, play me a song.
Yeah.
And I'm just like that. So then when I sat there and like would learn songs 9 o'clock at night, I mean, there were times where I'd play guitar 6 hours a day. But I'm just sitting there thinking, you know what? If they can encourage me when I'm like that bad, it's kind of that whole cheesy. If you don't like me or if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And I'm like, well, thanks. That's so cheesy, but it's kind of true because I'm just like, you can appreciate me when it's so bad. So that way, when it's like, you're finally at a point where you're just like, you know what, I'm actually fairly decent. It's like, I hope I'm making you proud.
Yeah.
Well, and that is a true friend, right? Like a true friend understands, like, you're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have good seasons, bad seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't weigh the friendship on, are you hot or not in that season?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Like they get like, okay, well, you're struggling, bro. So I'm here with you, Right. One thing that you touched on, I want to kind of scoot back to.
No, we're too far.
As far as we're never too far. As far as when you don't know something, you do the research or you ask the questions, right? And in the vein of self-doubt and unbelief, and he's getting an emergency phone call.
Might be.
I was about to say, well, thank you for joining the podcast today.
It's time for my medicine.
Thanks for having me, Blake.
Reflux.
Oh no, we don't need any acid reflux.
Geriatric.
Basically,
senior citizen.
Not a medication.
I'm movers.
Uber, baby. That's good.
But along those lines of knowing, you're not knowing something and finding out.
Yes.
Like when you said that, and for me, it immediately ticked knowing yourself.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on that a little bit later. Is like, man, if I don't, especially as a kid, like you don't really know yourself. You're trying to figure things out. You're trying to understand, like, why is there hair growing out of my armpit now? Like, all these different things. Like, I sweat and I stink now.
Yep.
I didn't do that before. And you're going through all that as a kid and you're trying to figure stuff out. But you don't know yourself.
Right.
You're trying to establish an identity.
Right.
But then you get older, you start to kind of establish those things. And like you were saying, I didn't do this and my parents knew where I would be. And these were kind of things that you were establishing. But a lot of times, man, we get into adulthood and we haven't established anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there's a lot of adults just are out here freelancing. And you mentioned purpose earlier. I was like, well, for me, purpose has been like a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
Like
absolutely.
I no longer try to figure out, well, what's my place?
Yep.
Like when God made my purpose clear, it was go time.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's just like there's not like, oh well, I don't know. Like, no, he's giving me purpose.
Yeah.
He's giving me directions. He gives me instructions periodically on like, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. Okay, let's go.
Yep.
But without that purpose, without that direction, man, we're out here just making stuff up.
Yeah.
That's right.
And if you're making stuff up and you have nothing to attach it to that you can go back and say, I know this is the thing.
There's doubt.
Right? Then there's that doubt.
Yeah.
And there's that unbelief of, well, maybe that wasn't the thing when stuff starts going wrong. Yeah. Like, oh, that wasn't the right choice, or I shouldn't have been in that relationship, or I shouldn't have allowed that person to get close to me, right? Like, we hear all those type of stories. Yep. And so knowing yourself is important because you know what you can handle as you start to know yourself. You know what you can't handle. Like, there's certain people that just can't be in my life. Right. Because they're either too high strung, the drama level around them is too high, right? And I know what I can handle now. And just like we said before, having your no has been liberating for me, because I know if I try to go day 5 or day 6, you're going to get a different version of Dewan that's going to show up. And that's the one that's going to be tired, worn out, irritated. I don't want to talk to you, but I'm here. I don't want to look at you, but I'm here. Yeah. You know, I don't want to be that person. Yeah. But there's a certain point where it's like, I don't have anything. Yeah. Yeah. And I can't just be out here making stuff up.
Filling an empty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or pulling from an empty well.
Pulling from that empty well. Yeah. And so it's
somebody once told me too, like, God won't, people search so hard for what their purpose is, like what they're put on there to do. Mm-hmm. But I can't remember it was an older guy. Can't remember who it was, but he said something. He told me, he was like, God is not going to reveal his purpose to you for you to consider it. You understand that that's what you're going to be doing with your life. So why would he show you the full picture whenever you're just like, oh, well, I could do this, or maybe I'm supposed to do this, or maybe I could do this. That's an option. Yeah. No, this is what I've designed you to do. And a lot of people fight against that. They battle against that. They don't want to, oh, it's not, it's like,
he wants you to go from curious to serious.
Correct.
And if you're just curious, he's like, okay, well, when you're ready, I will start to unfold things for you, right?
About to throw your microphone.
When I got serious about, okay, God, my life is yours. Yeah. Like, I have no clue what I'm doing. I've messed up enough. Yeah. Then he started unfolding things like, okay, well, we're going to start here. Yeah. And then we're going to go here. And then from there, we're going to go there. Yeah. Right. But until I was serious about it, he's like,
yeah. Yeah. He doesn't give us purpose as an option.
Yeah. Right. And you did mention seasons too.
As a mission.
I'm one of those Christians. Ecclesiastes is one of my favorite books of the Bible, if not my favorite. Just because it talks about timing. It talks about seasonal things. Yeah. So you were talking about complacency earlier. Like, there's a season for that, right? Mm-hmm. There's a season for God to move you through these different seasons of your life where, like, you need him more, and that doesn't make you weak. But I think it's like, we see that as our physical eyes, we see that as weakness. Yes. Like, if I need help, that's like a sign of desperation. It's not good to be desperate, but in the kingdom of God, like, that's where you need to be.
It's essential.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Going through certain events in my life, I take great appreciation in the phrase "stop and smell the roses," because life happens so fast.
Gosh.
That it's just one of those that literally you blink and it's just like, I blink and I have a 9-year-old. Yeah. And it's just like, oh yeah, I remember coming home from the hospital, and I remember, like, do what?
Harley's 9.
Yes. Harley's 9. Yeah.
She's crazy. The double digits.
I know. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Cue the Kleenex. It's not even my kid.
But it's just one of those that, we go from midnight feedings to now, oh yeah, she can get the goldfish out of the cabinet. It's just like, oh, I don't like this. Yeah. And so then you're having to go to doctor's appointments, and they're like, what's about to happen, right? And I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't, Doc. And if I don't listen to you, it's not going to happen.
Nothing will change ever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so it's just like,
take your degree and shut up.
Exactly. And so, there, and then lies in more research, because I'm like, nah, that's not about to happen. So I'm literally researching, and I'm just like,
yep.
Oh yeah. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so, like, and then asking other people, I'm like, that doesn't happen. And they're like, well, no, it's not necessarily that it's going to happen, but it's like, it's going to start happening maybe with other kids, and then she needs to be informed. So it's just like,
yes,
that's the thing. Yeah.
Well, that's your kids though, not mine.
My kids never.
Mine's fine. My kid's never going to have that. That's fine. But I doubt it. Stopping it.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
I doubt that.
I doubt that.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
But stopping and smelling the roses is such a pivotal part of life. I think that people are just so like, oh, YOLO. You got to go do all this stuff. You got to go do this and just rush. And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Like, that's like you said it best with the seasons. Like, there's a season for that. And it's like, there absolutely is.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those situations, to me, is just as important as the purpose, because it's one of those situations like with Moses, slams the tablets down, breaks them out of frustration.
Yeah.
And then he couldn't enter the promised land.
Yeah.
And so then it's just one of those situations like, had that restraint been shown, he could have, joined them with it. But it's just one of those that they suffered, they toiled, they ached all of that time, and then finally got to enter the promised land. And unfortunately, he just basically had to sit on the mountain and watch. But it's one of those, stopping and smelling the roses is pivotal, because you get to enjoy the fruits of the labor.
Yeah.
You get to finally have peace after all the turmoil, heartache,
challenges.
Yes, exactly. So it's just one of those, it's very important to just really soak it all in.
Yeah. And when you describe that, the thing that I saw was what he was talking about earlier, is the glass half full. Like, if I am zipping through life, I am not stopping long enough to fill up that relationship cup with anybody.
You're spilling water everywhere, do I?
No, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to go here. I got to go there. And it's like, but hey, what about us? Like, we've been friends since like 5th grade. Like, my cup has got that much water left in it in our friendship, you know? So, like, the world is not ours to conquer. Like, people are like, I gotta go here and conquer the world and do it. Like, no, like, you have a space.
Yep.
And your job is to take care of that space. That's your portion of the world.
Yeah.
And filling the cups of those people that touch your life is so much more rewarding than, I went here and I went there, and I'm not saying like, let's not see the world and let's not take trips.
Yeah.
Like, please do. But if that's your whole motivation of, I got to do this and I got to check this box and check that box, and like, but the people around you are dying because they just want your time.
Yeah.
And you're so busy. I got to go make this money and I got to go do this. And like, but you're hustling your life away.
Right.
That's right.
And the people around you are like, can we just go eat dinner? Yeah. Like, can we just hang out?
Right.
Do
you eat?
Right. When do you eat?
Can you swindle it?
I can eat when I'm dead.
I'm on IV.
Shut your mouth when you talk to me.
Exactly.
What?
But yeah, it's just, it's you can't just run through life like that, because it's, again, you're not. It's that selfish. It's the selfish thing.
Yep.
Where you're not making it about anybody but you, like what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. Yes, have goals, have all that, but also have this portion of my life, man, that we're pouring out and we're caring for people and we're taking care of people, and we're going to sit at your friend's house that you haven't seen in a few years,
right,
and hang out and just like, man, let's catch up.
Yeah.
And let's just check in on you. And
you can't let that maladaptive thinking of like, me doing all of these things is helping everyone.
Yes.
Because I think guys really struggle with that.
Yes.
And if they're not doing everything for everyone, that's where the doubt comes in, where it's like, oh, well, I could go to dinner with Evan, but I really need to do this thing for this person. But Evan could be like struggling. Hey, I just need I just need an hour.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I actually committed to do this. So I'm going to do this. And it's like, but you in your mind, you're thinking, well, I mean, I can like get to him later. He'll be on the task list, right? You got this task list of things. And because I'm doing all the things on the task list, that's keeping me of like, this is good. This is like my purpose. This is
right.
No, you're missing
another
thing.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because that brings up another point of, I think a lot of people also don't give the phrase setting boundaries the full intent.
They don't,
because all they think of is, I've got to set boundaries to be able to say no.
Yeah.
But also setting boundaries is, if I'm not okay and I say, hey, can we go get something to eat or go to coffee or something? I just need to discuss some things.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, because you've got your own life too. And it's my responsibility as far as setting boundaries and as much as obeying boundaries, to say, if you're like, well, I really want to, is everything okay? Because I had this other stuff, and it's like very pivotal. Like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
It then borders into selfishness of, Yeah, well, I understand that's important, but mine's more important. Yeah. However, if you're one of those where like I've got this other thing, but I want to talk to you, can we talk later? Like if once it's over, it should be over about 8:00.
Yeah.
Can we talk? At that point, you know what? That gives me, and I'm only speaking for me.
Right.
But that gives me peace of mind to say, you know what? You've cared enough to even still carve out time knowing how busy you are.
Absolutely.
So it's also it's also setting boundaries, obeying boundaries for me to basically lay it out there. Hey, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part, because when I had my stuff going last year, I'd called 3 counselors, 3 psychologists, and I believe it's 2 or 3 psychiatrists.
Yeah.
And to this day, still haven't gotten a call back.
Yeah.
Like I've left messages, and I'm leaving messages kind of like half giggling, like, I don't really know what to do.
Right.
I'm kind of at my wit's end.
This is my 13th reason.
Exactly. But then,
this is my limited time. Let's go. Like,
help me out.
I hate it here.
I mean, hashtag relevant next time.
No, but even still to this day, haven't gotten a call back. And so that was like a realization of, you know what? Now let's let the rubber meet the road.
Yeah.
And just see what needs to happen. So I also understood the importance of one thing at a time. I think so much, you talked earlier about you've got this balance and you've got this, and all this is just weighing on your shoulder, and we're like Atlas at this point of just balancing the entire world.
Yes.
But, I would be telling my team at work, hey, just do one thing at a time. And I'm like, well, why aren't I practicing what I preach?
Right.
So I would literally have all these tasks, these undertakings, or even just taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And then I would knock one thing out. And sometimes even just for like symbolic reasons, I would write it down. And then it got to a point where I just write everything down. And then just as satisfying as the word no is, marking through your to-do list and just like check.
Yeah.
It's like
I use my task on my phone.
Same. I use that.
Away and I'm like,
I do that, or I do notes or something, and then just like literally hitting backspace and just watching it disappear. I'm like, this is wonderful. Yeah. But it's just, that was symbolic. So now understanding that doing one thing at a time is not slowing time down, but it's also not speeding time up. It's just taking time.
Yes.
And
that thing becomes complete.
Correct.
Like there's a lot of times, and we've all been guilty of it. Like, okay, I added all this stuff to my list, and nothing is done. Right. And then you get overwhelmed, and you're like, well, I know I got to do all 10 of these things, and I don't even know how to attack this anymore.
Right.
That's exactly
because I've allowed so many things to pile up, and that can be things with your family, and that can all be important things.
Yeah.
Like all of those things could be number ones on your list, but you're like, I don't know how to manage 10 number ones. Right.
Correct.
So it's tricky. Because you can't.
There's only be one winner, kids.
That's it. Everything else is second.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Right. If you ain't first, you're last. Like, I don't go fast enough.
Is that the prophet Ricky Bobby?
Dad. Prophet Ricky Bobby. Yes.
A great prophet.
Somebody have any Mountain Dew?
No.
Dear sweet baby Jesus. Sweet. 8 pound, 6 ounces. Don't even know where yet.
When we were talking a little earlier, I always like situations that almost seem to kind of fall in your lap, where you're just like, that go figure.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about self-doubt, or even just doubt and unbelief. And I was just like, what can I even talk about? Because I was like, we found out, we'll just wing it, see what happens. I can always talk about stuff.
Yeah.
May not be right, but I can always talk. And I always pull up the Bible app because I'm just like, it always amazes me of the verse of the day, of just how it's relevant in some way, shape, or form.
There's always.
I don't know why. And it's just one of those, it's like, well, it's the living
and active.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just one of those, it's like, it's the living word.
It's
so,
chasing
of course
down
it's going
also.
to be. But.
There's been one said. A tree brute? No, it's good.
Jesus Christ. But verse of the day, 2 Thessalonians 3:3. But the Lord is faithful, who will establish you and guard you from the evil one.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as I read that, I was just like, let's see what happens. And I read it, and all I thought of was just the course of trauma for my entire life.
Yeah.
And it's just like, as selfish as I got with taking care of myself, and as selfish as I was for thinking, why me? or as just completely off the rails that I might have went, what was the one constant? The Lord is faithful, who will establish you and guard you from the evil one.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, I am here. And not only that, it's just like, things aren't terrible. And it's so easy to just pick the one bad thing and just pick it like a scab and just let it get worse and let it get worse. And it never heals. It just continues. It doesn't get worse. It just doesn't get better. It's easy to do that rather than just think about, you know what? I was down and like I was pulled out.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
He never let me get to a point where I was like non-existent.
Yes.
And so that was really awesome to just kind of again study and go further.
Yeah.
So any guess from either of you how many verses in the Bible cover self-doubt?
That one?
Over 100.
Over
100. Wow. I was going to say like 50.
Over 100.
Wow.
Any guesses on how many verses cover unbelief? Not disbelief or belief itself, but unbelief itself.
125, Bob.
Not 125.
It's not wrong, but over 100.
Over 100.
There are over 100 verses.
So there's just as many verses as there is for one as the other.
Yes.
Yep.
No excuses.
So
it's
like I was literally going through and just kind of like, oh, let's just see, and then flick, and then stopped. Ephesians 6:10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might.
Yeah.
Is be strong and courageous in there?
Do what?
Sure.
I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
It better be in there. It's my favorite.
There's over 100, but yeah,
should be amongst that.
Actually, there's Joshua 1:19. Have I not? Or Joshua.
No,
Josh.
This is
1:9.
This is not the Riz version. This is just
it's my homie Josh.
Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
Wherever you go.
So, I mean, self-doubt in and of itself can be covered, but then, literally Mark 9:24 on unbelief, it literally says, immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe, help my unbelief.
Yes. Yes.
So it's one of those, again, when we talk about this, we talk about a living word.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just one of those that it's nice because, again, we talk about the research.
Yeah.
That goes with things.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that knows me knows it's not that I don't like talking biblically or spiritually or anything, but I also understand that we as Christians, we as disciples, we as stewards, whatever you want to call us, as far as it goes, is we want people to know the good and the bad. I think so often we had this conversation many times about how I've called it safe Christianity.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, we only talk about the good. Let's talk about how everything's good. And it's like, well,
it's very cliche.
It is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like, that's not life.
Yeah,
like life has the ups and the downs, and I'm living proof of that.
Yep.
And it's just one of those that, like, it doesn't matter if there's more ups than downs. It doesn't matter if there's more downs than ups. It doesn't matter if there's equal.
It's going up and down.
Ups and downs. There's still ups and downs.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those situations that the one constant is Him.
Yes.
And if we have the understanding that it's not Him that's like, hey, you know what, things are going pretty good, it'd be a shame if you tripped and broke your arm. Like, that's not like, I just can't see or feel Him going, oh, well, you're going to break your arm to learn a lesson.
Right.
But at the same time, it's one of those situations where it's a situation or a circumstance that's happened, and then all of a sudden you've learned how to adapt.
Yeah.
And that malleability is really crucial as Christians, because think of how often, I mean, they were essentially nomads that traveled all over the place.
They had no home.
Following Jesus. They had no set location. They were just like, where you go, I go.
Yep.
And so while we don't necessarily have that situation that we have to deal with of going everywhere, but it's one of those, like, it could happen. We could be called. We could go do whatever we need to do as far as that goes. but it's just really a good thing to just take a step back and say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to throw scripture at you all the time. Yeah. I'm not going to do this. I just want to talk to you.
Just be here, yeah.
Like we played golf today with Paul from church, and I'd talked to him before, like throughout, because he's talking about getting into golf and wanting to learn it.
I still can't feel my legs, by the way.
Still can't feel my legs.
It's a lot of.
You did your best.
He was using a kid set. It's
yes,
fine.
The plastic,
the little plastic ones.
Yes,
struggle.
Jacob Vices, yeah, kid set.
Wow, Jacob Vice, shout out.
But no, we were playing today, and we had talked before. He was talking about things he wanted to work on with his game, and I was helping him out. I played golf since I was 3 years old.
With a plastic set.
With a plastic set. I still play with a little tight set.
I used to break the plastic set.
But I would do little things, like just help him out. You can't break them; they just bend because they're plastic.
That's fine. I saw Happy Gilmore, and I was like, "Let's try it again." No, let's try it again.
Throw them in the lake, and so we were playing today, and he said, throughout the course of the day, I could just hear your voice telling me stuff, like talking about, oh, make sure your feet are lined up, make sure your shoulders are lined up, swing like this and stuff. And he played great today. I mean, he did
Paul
really
did
well. It but at the same time, the best thing that I heard, and I mean, we talked about church stuff or biblical or spiritual stuff a little bit, but it was just like, you know what? I said, let's just hang out.
Yeah.
Like, let's just go hang out. And he said, I had the most fun today playing golf than I have all year.
Yeah.
And he plays a lot.
He plays every week.
Like a lot. Yes. I didn't know that, but he plays a lot.
Yeah.
And so to hear that was just like to hear that, just because that kind of resounds that community. That just resounds like, hey, you know what? I'm out here having fun. Yeah. We could have done terrible. Like, we did bad at points.
Yeah.
But
it's fun.
It's just one of those to hear that and to just be like to just have that feeling. And it's and I didn't feel selfish. It wasn't just like, I said, that's the best thing that I've heard.
Yeah.
Because I also know what it's like to not have that.
Yeah.
Because again, that's why I mentioned the being in my room at 9:00 on a Friday night playing guitar.
Yep.
Everybody else was out at parties getting trashed, doing all these things. Again, underage. So,
chocolate wasted.
Let's go.
But it's just one of those things that I just didn't have that desire. But you know what? It comes with a price. Like, could I have gone to that community? Yes, I would have had community around that, but what good would that have done?
It would have cost.
Whereas I was just like, you know what? And then I think about this as well, because we talk about, spiritual fathers, heavenly fathers, and how, there's actual manifestations or representations of the Heavenly Father through our earthly fathers. And that's why that's one of the reasons that I take being a dad so very serious, because I take great pride in it and I try to do the best that I can for that. And it's just one of those that all I thought of was, if I got in any kind of trouble, I was like, well, I'm just going to die. Like, my parents are just going to kill me. My dad's going to kill me first. Mm-hmm. Or no, my mom's going to kill me first. And then she's going to resurrect me and just say, wait till your father gets home, and then he's going to kill me.
She's going to pray over you. Say, Lord,
bless him back. Lazarus.
Exactly.
So his father can then kill him.
And then put him back in the grave.
So she would Lazarus me back to life. So then Dad would turn me into Job's wife, and I would just go to Salt and then fly.
Not the Salt.
You're done. He's done.
He's filled the salt. It's very bad luck.
Not Dummy. Rest in peace, Lot's wife. We miss you, girl.
She's gone.
We miss you, girl.
Life is but a vapor.
Or a pillar of salt.
But it's just one of those that I was so worried, and Dwan's talked about this before. I was so worried about disappointing my heavenly parents, my heavenly father, or I'm sorry, my earthly parents, my earthly father.
Mm-hmm.
And how often do we think about, oh, well, I've disappointed God? We don't, because we are human.
Yeah.
And humans think in the here and the now. We are in such a now society. And you brought up a point a while ago that you will definitely agree with. And if you don't, you're wrong.
Well,
I feel so bad for kids nowadays. Kids nowadays have the hardest generation. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, they've got iPads. Everything's so easy for them. Being a kid nowadays is absolutely
it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Awful. You talk about sensory overload.
Yes.
And I mean, it's just one of those, like, each generation tries to do what they can to make the next generation easier. And I think about all these different things, and I'm like, you know what? If I could just, if I could just,
it is a disservice.
Man.
if I had to do a little more or pay a little more or do whatever to ensure that the world would be a better place for Harley's generation or the next generation after that, you know what? I will be willing to take that sacrifice, because in the grand scheme of things, it is not about me. I am a small piece of the puzzle in this thing called life.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those situations that if you think about, like they always talk about, like donations or something, if everybody chipped in $1, I mean, if you think in the grand scheme of things, if everybody on the planet chipped in $1, and we have 8 billion people on the planet.
They do. It's a thing called Powerball.
Sure.
We can raise millions of dollars to give it away to an unknown person.
Sure.
Are they raising that money with our taxes?
Yeah. They are. Oh yeah. Man, the money that people spend buying tickets, but we can't raise money for simple things.
I haven't won it yet, so it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's not real. It's fake money.
It's fake money.
It's monopoly money. I do not believe it's real.
That's true. But it's just one of those that I think of so many kids, just not kids at the church. And I mean, you've got the conflict over in the Middle East right now, and you're just thinking about like all of this conflict going on between countries, between different factions and such. And then you just see these children caught in the middle of it. And it's just like, a lot of them are products of environment, especially you see kids in warfare. And it's just like, well, that's just all they're taught to do. And honestly, they may know what they're doing, but do they really know better?
No.
That's the thing.
That's all they've seen.
Exactly. Or all they're taught or all they're instructed to do. And so being a kid nowadays is harder than any other time in history. It just is. And it's amazing to think about because there's so much technology. There's so much at our fingertips that we can find out. I mean, we think about when we were kids, and we didn't have the internet, how do you find out or how do you check it out? Oh, you go to the card catalog at a library and check out a book, and then you find a book from 1976.
The dictionary.
Oh, that's the truth.
And the encyclopedia.
Exactly.
And we had the people who would come to your house to sell you an encyclopedia set.
The Encyclopedia Britannica.
Your phone books.
Yes.
Are so interesting to me.
Yes.
As who consented to give all their information to put in this book?
Because I'm calling this person. Your consent was by default.
Was it? Because I'm calling this person.
There was no letter to sign.
There was no letter. It was just one of those. It's like
you had a house.
If you had a house with a phone number associated with it, you were in the phone book.
Yes.
Like you could actually at one time, and I hope that nobody gets in trouble for this, but
if they do,
our phone book for Middle Tennessee had Carthage, Tennessee, and that's where the Gores are from. Yes, that Al Gore.
Oh, really?
Al Gore's family lives in used to live in Carthage, Tennessee, and you could actually find Al Gore Sr. in the phone book.
Yes.
So yeah.
It was all there.
But now it's hidden. So
now everything's hidden.
Sorry you missed the 90s, kids. No?
Yeah. You could have found everybody that you wanted.
Suck it, Trebek.
Yeah.
It was just
Fuck it, Trebek. He'll be back in a second.
There's so many. There's just so many places I could go, and I'm like, it's not appropriate.
It's fun. It's fun.
Celebrity Jeopardy. But it's just one of those that when we think about when somebody says, "Oh, kids don't know how good they have it," you know why they don't? Because you have that mentality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have a lot of doubt.
The kids have a lot of doubt. Talking about, especially there's so much when I was your age or when I was a kid, it wasn't like this. And it's just like, okay, but it's not. So shut up.
Save the back in my days and be present.
Correct.
You talked a lot about presence and being present with people over just like doing. Sometimes you just need to be present.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know if it's been a theme, correct me if I'm wrong, but at our church, we've really been trying to focus on the presence of God. And I've always been told, like, the presence of God can heal doubt in an instant. Like experiencing God's presence is more monumental than anything, but we're not willing to be present with people.
Yep.
We think that we have to do something for someone, and we're not just sitting with them is enough.
People are so often looking for tangible evidence that they seem to forget everything that's happening even within themselves that they can't recognize.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I will say this on the kids now. they are exposed to things that they're not ready to process
at all.
That's probably the best way of.
Whenever your parents say grown folks' business, I understand that now. I'm like, there were some things I did not.
It damages them in such a deep way.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no wonder you have so many adults losing it.
Yeah.
As at 20s, they're just losing it because they don't know how to process the things that they've seen at 10 years old.
And those adults have kids.
Yeah. Yes.
Just so you know.
That's right.
Disclaimer. No.
Yeah. And you want to say that they have it easy. Like, no, we've actually condemned them to a prison.
Correct.
Honestly, like, they have so much access to stuff and everything is so easy. We've crippled them.
Yeah.
We've crippled them. And it's sad. You've crippled them and then you have mentally assaulted them because they're overwhelmed by so many things that come at them.
Oh, absolutely.
Way too early.
Absolutely. You've got like YouTube Kids where you could set an age limit on.
Yeah.
And now what people are doing is they're uploading videos and then it's like of adult content, but it's got a nice little pink screenshot or something like that. Yep. Oh, this is innocent. And then all of a sudden it's just like blindside. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I laugh because I think about, they talk about, oh, well, kids nowadays never know how easy it is. I saw a screenshot the other day, and it was of, like, if you ever went into Pizza Hut or any restaurant, you saw those cigarette machines where you like put the money in and like pull it, and the pack would drop down.
Yes, old school.
You didn't even have to verify your ID.
Oh no,
like it was the honor system.
Yes.
You literally put the money in there, pulled it out, and you could get a pack of cigarettes. Mm-hmm. I could have done that. In fact, I literally one time made a mistake. I just went up to the machine, I'd start turning and pulling the little thing because I'm a kid. Yes. No, I was just like, oh, sweet. And I would look at all the different ones. I would see
some smoke.
I would see Marlboro, Camel. I would see that, like menthol.
I like Camels. I love Camels. Love Wang.
Are these fruit snacks? What's this?
I love lamp. But no, one time I was in one of those restaurants and I was just like, haha, do whatever. And I pulled, and then one fell out because I guess somebody put money in and forgot. And then like a pack of cigarettes fell out, and I just literally turned around and walked away.
Yeah, because cigarettes are like 25 cents.
Yeah,
so.
But it's just one of those like
not anymore.
One of those situations like you want to talk about. Oh, kids don't know how easy to have it. It's like it's a terrible example. It's like I was 8. I could have literally started smoking.
Yes,
on the honor set. I could have done my paper route and bought a pack of cigarettes
easily.
And so it's just like you want to talk about easy.
Yeah.
And so the only thing easy right now that kids really have is access to information.
Yes.
Instead of like our access to information back in the day was ask mom and dad. And if they didn't know, they would just like, well, they make something up and tell you because I said so.
All right.
It's just like,
okay. Or go read it.
And we took it for its worth.
Yeah.
So it's just, and it's, and then of course everybody wants to blame video games. Okay.
There's a whole list of things.
I mean, it's just one of those. The real issue is
absentee parenting.
Instead of correct. That's.
I mean,
literally where I was going with it. It's one of those situations that we're blaming video games for gun violence. We're blaming this for this. We're blaming this for that, and it's just like, when are we just going to take responsibility? Because in a way, that cures a lot of that doubt and unbelief.
Yeah.
Like, see, I don't have doubt about certain things because I'm just like, you know what? I can control that.
Yeah.
I have control.
Parental guilt is a real thing too.
It absolutely
you
is.
feel guilty all the time.
Oh yes.
Exactly. Well, you feel guilty because it's something that you feel you should have had better control of. Yeah. So, maybe if I mask that, it won't be so bad. It's like Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you tell me the bad news in a good way, it won't sound so bad.
It won't sound so
exactly.
bad.
It's exactly.
Yes.
So it's
funny thing about bad news, it's bad news.
Correct. Funny thing about bad news is that first little word.
Basically, it's bad.
But I think that if people would just take a step back, anybody, just take a step back.
Yeah.
Stop and smell the roses and just really understand your position in life. And it's especially if you know God and you know everything that's come about it and you know what he has to offer and what he can offer and what he will offer if you just let him.
Yeah.
The course will change. And again, it's not always easy and it's not always good.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that, again, just like that verse said, he is the faithful one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not always instant.
Correct.
Like some people will try Jesus for 6 months and be like,
man,
I didn't feel anything, nothing changed. Like, bro, because it's a process.
Yeah. And
it's not a microwave deal. It's
that's what I was talking about earlier with the complacency is like, okay, like honestly, it's like, oh yeah, I expected something and it didn't happen. It's like, are you sure? Because in a way, you were on a path to self-destruction, but you're still in the same position you were before. It's like, so you don't think he did anything to keep you here right now?
Right.
Like, kind of just like, hang tight,
Yeah.
give me a minute because I'm doing something right now. It's like, how often did you go into the kitchen when mom or grandma or something was cooking and you're like, oh, when's dinner going to be ready? It'll be ready when I say it's ready. I think it's the same thing. He's cooking something up. He's getting something together. It's like, it's like you're going to eat one.
And the crazy thing is, even in your destruction and your doubt and your self-doubt, he's still working.
Yep.
Even in that moment, even 100%. In those times.
Yep. In fact, I think a lot of the time, or at least I feel a lot of the time, when you're self-destructing, that's when you feel he's doing the most.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of one of those. My situations, anytime I've had something in life, true change, true situations, true stuff has happened right when I give up.
Yeah.
When I literally, and not just like, oh, I give up, whatever. But when I just say, I'm okay.
Yep.
I'm going to be okay. I know you got it, but I give up.
Yep.
I almost feel like a presence of just him saying, that's what I was waiting for.
Yep.
That's all that I needed.
Yep.
Boom. And again, he doesn't need anything from me.
No.
He's got everything under control. But like when I could just give that true submission, because we talk about submitting and submission. It's just like, like you submit one time, but you can be beaten into submission. And so when you're just like, I give up. Like, it's one thing to give up. It's just like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. But it's another to just like, I'm going to keep doing it, but okay.
Yeah. You've given up control of the results.
Correct.
Things that God has asked me have hinged on, first, are you going to say yes? That's the intro.
Yep.
Like, here's a thought. What if we do this? And I've got a yes or no. Sometimes it's no.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, we'll revisit this. You'd be like, oh, okay, I guess if you're still talking about it, I probably need to say yes to this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
what did you say about this podcast?
I said no twice to this podcast, and he kept asking me, and I was like, okay.
Well, I casually brought it up. I said, why don't you do a podcast? You have so much to give. And like present day, that's how people are giving away their knowledge. It's podcasting. So why not? And then it's like, it was a no. I think it was that Wednesday. You're like, oh no. They're like days later.
Yeah.
So, hey, and I'm like,
yeah. I think I texted you like a week later. I was like, okay, so maybe the Lord is trying to tell me something. So,
color purple.
This thing I don't want to do, he's telling me I need to say yes. So it starts with the yes, and then it becomes obedience.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, well, you got to have obedience. Yeah, but you got to choose to first say yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he's going to start giving you the steps and the processes that you have to be obedient to.
Right. Yeah.
And
like that purpose unfolds doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And you stop. For me, after I finally say my yes, because some things I've like, I don't know if I want to do that, God. But once I get to the yes, I kind of stop worrying about how it's going to work out.
Right.
Because I have no clue. Like us doing this, I have no clue how this is going to work out. I just know he's told me to do it, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it to the best of our ability and let him be in control of the results.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm not out here like, oh, we got to watch the algorithm and we got to do this. Like, we're just going to do what he's told us to do. And so it's the obedience, right? And all of that leads into purpose.
That's right.
Right? And just like you said, Blake, as you start with that yes and it evolves into obedience, the doubt starts to go away.
Yeah.
Like, there's things I'm like, okay, are you sure, God? Like, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure about this, but if you say so. But it's not a thing of anymore. It's not a thing of doubting myself.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, if that's what we're doing, I have no idea how this is going to work, but if that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so the closer you walk with him, the more you realize I'm not in control of anything, but also my responsibility level is nowhere where I think it is.
Right.
Because I'm not in control.
Correct.
Like, you start to understand he's in control. He moves the pieces on the board the way that he wants to move them.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, well, he's responsible for this. Like, I'm not. My job is just to follow the instructions that he gives me.
Yep.
And it takes that pressure off. And no, I don't have to walk around like, well, I don't know if that was okay. You know, it's like, is God pleased?
Yep.
If God is pleased, I'm good. You know, other people have their opinions, and that's great. I'll take it. I'll make note of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of things, you know, I tell guys, it's like, you hear something from me, you hear something from anybody, take it, write it down, whatever you got to do, but take it to the Father.
That's right.
Like, don't take my word for it.
Yeah.
Then you sit down and you pray and you talk to God like, hey, I'm kind of feeling this. I'm kind of hearing this. Like, I need you to either confirm some stuff, cross some stuff out, shut some doors, open some doors. I need direction from here, from you. You know, it's like, there's a lot of things that I have done and God is asking me to do. And I don't really care about the opinions anymore. Like, he's told me to do it, and I know that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I just roll with that at this point. So the self-doubt that I lived with for a long time, the unbelief in myself that I lived with for so long, it just starts to shrink.
Yep.
To the point where it just
becomes non-existent.
It becomes non-existent. And because I know he's got me.
Yes. The most important thing that you need to remember is there's a difference between fulfilling your purpose and distracting yourself.
Yes.
So I think a lot of times, like, you know, like I talk about authenticity all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, are you doing it for the right reasons?
Right.
Or are you doing it to pass the time? Or are you doing it because, you know, because a lot of the time we have to be cautious about, you know, people saying, oh, I can feel the Spirit telling me that you need to give me $5. It's like,
well, you gotta be careful with that.
Correct.
I feel the Spirit's telling me you need to give me 10.
70 times 70. Next. Yeah.
Hands down, shaking together.
So now there's two of us. Yeah. But no, that discernment is incredibly important in our walk because, again, discernment can help us differentiate between what's godly and what's earthly.
Yes.
Or what's, for lack of better terms, evil, you know?
Yep.
He's the faithful one and keeps us sheltered from the evil one.
Absolutely.
So it's just one of those where, are we fulfilling our purpose? Because, again, like I said, I'm a firm believer in fulfilling the purpose, but I'm a firm believer also as well of, you know, if you're not receiving anything, and again, comes with a level of discernment as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not receiving anything, it's just like, you know what, let's appreciate the journey that we've come this far, that he's led us here.
Yeah.
Because for all we know, those seasons, those in-betweens are our promised land. We toiled, we heartached, we suffered, all of that, and then to that season of rest, that season of complacency, where we can just say, hey, you know what, this is our promised land right now. This is where we can just, you know what, this is what he's laid out for us, as opposed to, all right, well, now pack your stuff up because we're going on a journey again.
Yep.
This is our rest. So it's just one of those that I think nowadays, again, we talked about kids and how there's just sensory overload. There's just so much going on. It's like, yeah, it's very easy to distract yourself.
Yes.
Because there's a million ways to do so. But absolutely, when you just think, like you just said, and we've had this conversation before, and I love when you get fired up about it every single time. But it's just like, you know, when you have your purpose and all that stuff starts to dwindle away, it honestly makes you want to live that more.
Yes.
It's just like, okay. And that's one of the reasons why I say, like, hey, that season is important of just really refreshing and reloading and refilling, because when you get that, it's just very easy to say, oh, that was great. Yeah. I see the efforts have come to fruition now.
Yeah.
What's my next assignment?
Yeah.
What's my next?
And distracting yourself is not that.
Correct.
For everything that God has, the devil has an antithesis that seems like it.
Yes.
But it's not. It's
Synonym.
almost like it.
Synonym.
Synonym. It's cinnamon. It's cinnamon, but it's not the same.
It's sweet and low.
It's
not
gross. Yikes. Sorry,
sweet and low.
Sweet and low is gross.
You just compare Satan to sweet and low.
Basically. Terrible. Just terrible. Why are you even
Keep
here?
falling.
Why are you even here?
It's falling.
In other words, the Owl Podcast as well is sponsored by Sweet and Low. So
what the heck? I'm out of here.
This is now our last episode. Thanks.
Correct.
Well, guys, it has been awesome. We're going to wrap it for
Evan
today.
King, Juilliard, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Juilliard, ballerina, guitar player. Oh, no. Not
I'm just going to go home and cross through my diploma.
Cross off all that on
big X with that and then misspell Juilliard. Just because at this point. Blake says it is true.
Thank you, sir, for coming on. It has
been
a pleasure. It has been awesome.
Heavy abs.
We would definitely have to do it again, but not after 18 holes of golf.
I mean,
my body.
I feel great. So
my body's numb. Evan made the wise choice.
Never works out, yeah. They distracted themselves on the golf course. They felt
now my body is rejecting me.
Blake is there in spirit.
Yes,
basically.
I will be laid out in the front row at church across several pairs.
Oh, no.
So
just literally lay in the floor. Just lay in the floor, plank on the floor.
What's wrong with him? Don't worry about it.
Can you request an altar call?
Yes.
I thought the pastor. I saw him. Can I request him?
Hey, before you start the message, I need a little bit of help over here.
No, literally, I am the altar.
Yes.
Just
I have laid it out.
Just kneel onto one.
I need the spirit right now. I'm not making it without you. But this has been awesome, guys. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate you taking the time.
Episode good.
Behind the scenes, Dylan. We're going to get him on a mic. Starting.
Dylan's got a lot to say.
He's going to say
a lot of good stuff. He's got a lot of experience.
We may have to strap him into the seat.
He has 75 years of experience in his young frame.
Yes.
He's going to sing for you.
He's going to what?
He's going to sing for you.
Dylan can sing?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he can.
Oh, okay. We're going to have to talk about that.
I've seen him do it.
We're going to have to talk about that.
Don't say I doubt it. No.
We'll see. All right, fellas.
Yes or no.
Say goodbye to the people.
Yes or no.
See y'all.
I got to see
episode 4. Peace out.